You're listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. Each week, your host, Polly Requa, interviews veterinarians and individuals in the pet industry from across the nation answering pet questions. Bark and Wag podcast is produced weekly for your enjoyment, and show notes can be found at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. That's BARKNWAG.com. Please remember to subscribe to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk.
Thank you for listening to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk. Bark and Wag is dedicated to protecting our dogs through advocacy, education, and supporting like-minded dog lovers by selling custom pet products. Saving lives by selling collars, scrunchies, and swag. Please check out Bark and Wag's website, barkinwag.com. That's BARKNWAG.com to see the awesome merchandise. Bark and Wag collars and leashes, collar covers, and decorative bandanas are perfect for your pooch. For the owner of the house, we have t-shirts, sweatshirts, long sleeve shirts, hats, and even coasters. We are expanding monthly, so be sure to check back. We love pooch ideas for podcasts and merchandise too, so send an email to polly@barkinwag.com with your suggestions.
Welcome to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk. I'm your host, Polly Requa. Today we're talking to Dr. Susan McMillan, owner of Vet to Pet Mobile Veterinarian Service in Burlington, Vermont. Welcome, Susan.
Hi, Polly. Good to talk to you again.
Yes, thank you for being on the podcast.
Yeah, this is a great topic that we're going to jump into.
Yes, so the topic is, can your dog, or I guess your cat, get the coronavirus?
So there's two answers to that. They can get a coronavirus. They probably very, very likely cannot get the coronavirus that we're all talking about right now, which is the COVID-19, and that just stands for Coronavirus Disease 2019. That's when it first emerged. And we still very much believe that dogs and cats and all the other mammals that get coronaviruses are not carriers. They're not getting this disease. I know there's been some talk about the dog in Hong Kong that tested positive for the COVID-19, that coronavirus. The dog's owner was positive and symptomatic for the virus. And at this point, they really think that the dog was just kind of contaminated with it, but he was not actually sick and he was not actually carrying it. So at this point, both the World Health Organization and our CDC, everyone who's on top of this is still sticking to the idea that no, we are not getting it or giving it to our dogs.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. Yep.
Yeah, but there's a couple of that leads into a couple of other things. And one of them is really sad. In China and in Asia, some of the different places where they have a lot of this coronavirus, there's a fear that it's being, given to people by their dogs, and people are abandoning their dogs.
I know.
It's really
awful.
sad. Yeah. And the flip side to that is the people that got stuck away from home when the quarantines fell down or were imposed. A lot of them haven't been able to go home yet, and they were going to be gone like a day, and they left their pets at home. So there's a lot of really hard stuff going on around the pets, but it doesn't have anything to do with us getting it from them.
And really, the virus is from the wild animals.
Yeah, they think that this virus crossed over from an animal I had never heard of before. At first, they thought it was a bat. Now they think it's an animal called a pangolin, which is the weirdest looking scaly, like anteater you've ever seen. I guess they are illegally imported into China. Both their meat is, I guess, highly desirable, and their scales are used in some different Chinese medicine. So they're imported into these live animal markets. And those are the kind of situations where viruses, they adapt, right? and they change. And there are times when viruses cross over between species. And they think that is what happened in some of those live animal markets in that one district in China. I'm sure your listeners remember the SARS and the MERS, those different problems we had with respiratory infections a few years ago. The SARS infection crossed over from a wild cat, they think, back in 2003. So it does happen for sure, but right now we don't have to be worried about getting the infection from our pets.
Okay, good news.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the bat thing where they were eating live bats. I mean, it's almost a little barbaric. How about we just concentrate on salmon and lobster and.
I know, and that's exactly how those viruses cross over when you have real close contact like that. And certainly eating something alive. I hadn't really read about the live thing, but that would fall into the gross and not very smart idea.
Right.
To me.
What about cats? I mean, so cats are the same.
Same thing,
okay.
right? So. Okay. Coronaviruses are a big class of viruses, and they're called coronavirus because of how they look under an electron microscope. I guess they look like there's a crown or a corona around the virus, but it's a big family of viruses. Coronaviruses are responsible for a lot of our common colds, which is why when you go to the doctor, they shouldn't necessarily prescribe antibiotics for you when you just have a cold, because it very well might be a virus. And antibiotics do not work on viruses. They work against bacteria. But it's a large family. Most mammals do get some form of coronavirus, but coronaviruses are very species specific. So the coronavirus that your dog gets, and we can talk real quickly about that, and the coronavirus that your cat gets, and we can talk about that, they're different viruses, and they don't give it to each other, and they don't give it to us. And having said that, the CDC still strongly recommends that when we are sick, they're still recommending that you not do the snuggle kiss thing with your pets. And I think that's just epidemiologically, at some point we do transfer viruses to each other. So, they still recommend that if you are sick with an upper respiratory infection, that you not be real cuddly with your pet. And I know that's hard for most people because that's exactly when you want to stay home and
cuddle.
Be in bed, cuddle with your dog, But, honestly, it's good medicine, period, to not let your dog lick your face. There's many, many, many other diseases and parasites that we can get from our pets. Well, not many. There's a few. And the way you get them is usually like face-to-face contact. I have clients who let their pets kiss them right on the mouth.
Ugh.
It's just a bad idea.
Yeah.
And even if you forget the diseases and the parasites, your dog grooms himself by licking his butt and his penis, and then to involve that in any form of oral contact with you is just a dumb idea, right?
Right.
So let's just say I said that. So, we're not supposed to do that for a lot of reasons. But then I think the main thing about the coronavirus, there's a lot of fear out there. As you and I are recording this, they've got like 5 new deaths in Seattle. We have it now just on the borders of Vermont. It's everywhere. I think it's everywhere already. We're just now testing for it and finding it. And you guys, all your listeners know, I think, the best thing is really good hand washing. If you're sick, stay home. If you're around people that are sick, stay farther than 6 feet away from them. And keep washing your hands a lot. When you sneeze, you're supposed to, don't do it into your hand, do it into a Kleenex and throw the Kleenex out.
Right.
So really basic hygiene. just like we should all be practicing anyway, and we don't. That 20-minute hand wash or 20-second hand wash.
That'd be a long time.
Wow. Yeah. That's the real, those are just, it's the basics, right?
Okay.
But to answer your initial question, coronaviruses are very, very species specific. In spite of that one dog in Hong Kong, we still think that you are not getting any coronavirus from your dog or your cat.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
As we continue on this epidemic, we'd love to have you back and have you give us any updates from the vet world. And we certainly appreciate you being on the podcast.
Sure. Always happy to do it.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks, Polly.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our web address, www.barkandwag.com, to your friends and other pet owners. Have a pressing question for a veterinarian? Ask your question at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. This has been a KFR production. Join us next time for another edition of Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk.